Well, hello there, and welcome to the top 10 best builds of 2020. Just like last year, I decided to make a list of the 10 best builds of the year, and just like last year, I'll quickly explain what I judged them on. In the meantime, I'll display some pictures of worlds that only just didn't make it on this list. Alright, so the things I'll be judging them on are technique. Did the person here do something that required techniques that are difficult to pull off, and did they invent that technique themselves? Originality. Did they invent a completely new theme in this build? Is it an already existing theme pulled off in a new way? Composition. How well are the things in this build put together? Do you get some awesome vistas in first person on the other parts of the build? Overall look. How well are the previous three combined? It might be very technical, but if the composition is off, or if it's not very original, it won't make it that high on this list. And lastly, the impact on the community. The things in this build inspire others to do something similar. Was the build remembered as amazing? This year I also asked everyone in the Pokeball Discord to send me suggestions so you could have some influence on the top 10 yourself as well. Now let's get started. Number 10. Urchin Witch by Grey. This build won in the Underwater Challenge from a few months back, and I can see why. This build has an awesome composition, you can see everything from one position, yet it doesn't seem chaotic or bare. And even though the whole build is a pile of buildings, it still has loads of depth. And the way he combined different themes is perfect. The Japanese gates, sunshade walls and Egyptian buildings blend flawlessly. But it doesn't have the technique involved of the builds above it. By the way, this build has awesome lore which I will not read now because that would take a lot of time. Number 9. Axia by Suede. One of the medalists of the Castle Challenge. It's unique and well composed. It has some really unique shapes, details and designs. The bridge, for example, is some really advanced stuff. And at the highest point has some serious Minias Theory vibes. One of the strongest points of this build is the layout. It has some really good stuff. One area flows really naturally into the other. There are 2 villages, a ton of towers, a garden with a monument and loads of other things, yet it all feels like one build. The only thing about this build that causes it to be 9th and not 4th or so is how messy it looks. Some angles of bridges could be better. The corners and curves sometimes feel a bit abrupt and some pieces don't blend together as well as others. But overall, some really impressive work from Suede here. There's a reason it got a ton of votes in the Castle Challenge. Number 8. Mystic Owl by Alexandra. This is what happens when a game developer plays the game that she gets paid to develop all day. This was another entry for the Castle Challenge in the Pokeball Discords, which is in my opinion the best challenge the server ever had. This build was quite a shock to the community, because we never saw a developer build something of such size and quality before. This castle uses the Elven castle pieces, which is not something that was done often at the time in a way that it actually looked great. This is probably the best execution of one of the default themes so far. This build uses all kinds of greenery as a part of the building as an addition or replacement of the already existing foliage on the elven pieces, which makes it just a little bit more unique, and there is more than just a castle. There is also the little goblin camp in the back and a little fairy village in the front. And when you look from the village in first person mode at the giant castle towering above you, you can truly appreciate how enormous yet refined this build is. Number 7. Flavoflorium by Zelda 6 Zelda. Another entry of the Castle Challenge, however this one was nothing unlike Mystic Owl. Zelda created a brand new theme in this build using brick fences and a load of autumn trees, creating this really unique vibe where, even though the castle isn't nearly as big as some others, due to the walls being much thinner he still managed to fit loads of details in. This build too has flawless composition. It looks amazing from every angle. Even the harbor is unique. It is 10 times more realistic than any harbor I've ever built, and it uses pieces that aren't meant for it at all. I believe that I can confidently say that there isn't a single square inch left undetailed. And that's why it's number 7 on this list. Number 6, Requiem for a Dream by GSX85. This build maybe isn't the most refined, not the most solid looking thing when you see an overview picture of this, but when you zoom in, you'll see what's actually going on here. This build is probably the most unique and game breaking on this list. I must admit, I don't know a lot about pianos, but when I look up what the inside looks like, this is pretty damn close. It uses pieces in completely new ways that nobody apart from GSX ever thought of. The only reason it isn't higher on this list is because it doesn't score that high on the composition and overall looks. And it looks like the exterior could use a bit of polishing. I can tell you, if GSX would have returned to this community and he'd improved the exterior of the piano slightly, he would have made it much higher in his list. Number 5, Quick Burn by Spartan God of War. This build was the first of many to show the building capabilities of the mighty Spartan God of War. This is the first time I've seen a somewhat realistic looking spacecraft in this game, and who would have thought that the title would go to a build featuring greenhouses. I definitely didn't, but seriously, if you would have added some filters to a picture of this build, I might have believed this was an actual space station. This build utilizes a crap load of items in a way you would never expected them to be used, and it truly shows what a creative mind can do with a bunch of bus stops, some pots, garbage cans and a few greenhouses. Number 4, Lagon by Valu. Probably the best terrain focused build ever in this game. It perfectly blends every type of terrain together and it's composed in a unique way. That looks really natural, and I can confirm that with everything I know about geography that this could very well be a caldera somewhere in the tropical zone, though there are barely any stratovolcanoes around there, so yes, this build could actually exist IRL if the equator would just shift a bit. Though this build probably isn't that useful when you want to build something on top, because your game will likely crash on settings where you can zoom out far enough to look on top. Just to give you a sense of scale of this bad boy. I also did a wall spotlight on this world, which is linked in the top right of your screen, so be sure to check that out if you want to see more of this build. Number 3, Jasmine Oasis by Diggy44. This build is something special. It started out as something small, all the way back in the beginning of March, where Diggy built something really impressive. Asian temples, using the very limited selection of Asian temple pieces. It had an awesome setting. The color palette was mostly consisting out of light colors, light blue water, light green foliage and light brown grayish rocks, with the only dark colors being the dark red of the temples. He started expanding it in the beginning of April and finished it completely halfway April, with the addition of the King's Castle towers used in a way that they look like Asian castle pieces. This huge addition to both the size and color palettes pushed it to legendary quality. This build was one of two that pushed Diggy to his legendary rank. Number 2, Dragonheart Castle by Spartan God of War. The winner of the Castle Challenge. Do I need to say more? Whether I need to or not, I will. This Hogwarts-inspired colors filled with the most interesting details and scenes, using a load of monarch pieces for the foundations of this huge build. There are also a ton of medieval houses, modern buildings and fence pieces. The color palette gets a bit bold during daytime, but this build is mainly made for night mode, where the palette is just colorful enough to add some color to and all at night, so not everything looks like different shades of dark blue. As I already said, this build has some really fun scenes, where you see students in the library or in a class. This is probably the best part of the build, but this build's greatest strength is also the greatest weakness. Some scenes are just scattered across the map where they seem a bit out of place. I wish these scenes were integrated a bit better in the build, and I feel like they could be. But overall a stunning build, one of the best ones ever in this game. That's why it's number 2 on this list. Number 1. Saltwater Castle by Diggy44. Yes, another castle challenge build. This beauty got 2nd place. It lost to Dragonheart Castle, which was the previous one on this list, but it turned out to be apparently more memorable because I got loads of submissions of this build to be in this list. This build is the thing that gave Diggy the final push to be legendary builder. And he was the only one to achieve that title this year. The details of this castle are out of this world and this might very well be the best build ever in this game. Diggy just took the medieval theme and changed it around to look like this utopian fantasy castle complex. The composition is absolutely on point, the vistas are outstanding. The build up to the highest towers in the back from the seaports, guarded by the 2 fallen warrior statues, and everything in between is as detailed as it can be, without being too busy. The castle looks fortified yet elegant because of the high, thick walls that are curved instead of having corners. The harbor behind the port has loads of life because of all the people standing there and the little details of supplies. The textures all over the place are amazing. They are all so different, yet they once again aren't too busy. This build is both stunning from afar and up close, and that's something that could very well be the hardest to achieve in a build. Now, because this is number 1, I will actually take the effort to read the lore out loud in this video. Saltwater Castle. An imposing fixture on any sailor's horizon. It's been carved and fortified in the mountains to withstand the harsh salty storms that punish those unequipped for the seas. The kingdom relies heavily on the bounty of the sea, and if the sea doesn't provide it to them, they take it from others by force with their unmatched naval strength and skill. Those who don't concede are either pillaged or taken prisoner. It is a kingdom unique to others, but its strength is unmatched. Welcome to Saltwater Castle. Traveler, good luck. And there's more to this build than just the main castle. There are coral reefs, shipwrecks, farms and even an additional small fort. I say small, but what I mean was not as colossal as the main castle. And I truly can't think of a better number 1 of this year's list than this model switch. I also want to thank some people for helping both me and especially the community this year, whether they watch this video or not. First of all, BRDSK, the almighty Bat Lady. She keeps the challenges in the Pokeball Discord running and the community as live as possible with that. Secondly, Diggy44. Not only did you become a legendary builder this year, you also became an admin in the Pokeball Discord server. And a hell of a good one if you ask me. And I also want to thank Kip Perry, Mr. Rumble, Pixel and the Heracronites for doing loads of work this year as well, just like BRDSK and Diggy when it comes to managing this server. Without that, this top 10 wouldn't be possible and running my channel in whatever way wouldn't nearly be as much fun. And lastly, I want to thank all the devs for giving us such an awesome game that can be played on both mobile devices and PCs where you only limited by your own creativity and CPU and graphics card of your device. That's all for this year. I'll see you later. Bye.